Well, thank you, Jerry, for that kind introduction and welcome. And thank you to the Shaw Conference Centre for always doing a spectacular job of hosting us. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for inviting us all here today. Fellow elected officials, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Nearly 100 years ago, Edmonton almost met its end. One Sunday in June of 1915, a short but foreboding telegraph arrived from Rocky Mountain House. It read, "My God, Edmonton, look out. The river is up 24 feet. With the war overseas and a grave financial crisis taking hold, Edmontonians already had other things on their minds. But as the river continued to rise, nearly a foot every hour, the hard truth came sloshing right to the city's doorstep. Edmonton was in trouble. The city sprang into action. Residents frantically drove wagons and carts down flooded streets to help neighbors find higher ground. Rescue boats ferried furniture to dry land. The CNR parked an entire train on the low-level bridge to prevent it from being washed away. The following day, the river was up 42 feet. Power was out across the entire city, and 2,000 people were suddenly homeless. Stores, businesses, and entire industries were gone in a matter of hours. The very heart of our young city was decimated at an already fragile moment in our history. Other places in similar circumstances might have let all their hopes and promises be swept away. But not Edmonton. Instead, we seized the opportunity and turned devastated flood banks into parkland, now North America's largest and one of our city's greatest assets. And we emerged more resilient for the next inevitable surge of the North Saskatchewan. And though some business owners like John Walter never recovered, others seized the opportunity and rebuilt even stronger businesses above the bank. In 1915, they all pitched in to help one another, to pull themselves collectively out of the mud. They didn't panic, they adapted, and they made smart, long-term decisions in the face of adversity, just as we must today. So let's start with the economy. We've all focused on the low price of oil, but our main export market in the US continues to surge. We've focused on layoff numbers in Alberta, and yet Edmonton continues to add jobs. In spite of national headlines proclaiming a province in economic decline, we know that's not the whole story in Edmonton. We're weathering this downturn, to the surprise of many. The Conference Board of Canada recognizes our economy as one of the country's most diversified and therefore more resilient to the roller coaster ride of resource dependence. But diversification doesn't happen by accident, and we're working alongside Edmonton Economic Development and other partners on a reinvigorated Port Alberta, on the Tech Edmonton Health Accelerator, Startup Edmonton, and an aggressive new approach to tourism attraction. As well, we continue to build on our established strengths by working with the industrial heartland to attract value-adding petrochemical and manufacturing investment. Meanwhile, we can feel the confidence continuing around us downtown, with the arena taking shape and an unprecedented number of cranes lifting our core to new heights. We can see local confidence too, with the recent news that Edmonton investors are jump-starting the stalled Glenora Skyline project. Edmonton investors. Given the contrast between national perception and local reality, it's never been more important for us to tell a clear and consistent story about Edmonton. But what is that story? Through tough debates on things like entrance signs, we become a little more certain that who we are is far more interesting than any single tagline could capture. Confident, diverse, thriving cities don't need taglines. This conversation isn't about a logo. It isn't about festivals or oil or gateways or the river or champions. Our city is all of those things. It's also a friendly, creative, entrepreneurial, and it's part of a long and deep Indigenous storyline. And that won't fit on a sign. Make Something Edmonton brought us an authentic, shared narrative that we built ourselves. And this work begins to answer the question that many of us have been asked. Why Edmonton? Well, this is a place for people who like to take risks, who like to build, and who care more about ideas than the weather. Each of us plays a role when speaking to friends and family, when recruiting to our city, when speaking to the world. I, most of all, bear this responsibility. And it's a message I recently took to China and South Korea, and a message I will bear in Toronto next week when I speak at the Economic Club of Canada on the new Edmonton, our new attitude, and new opportunities. For one thing, last year the Edmonton region became Canada's 5th largest in population. It was a quiet but important milestone that indicates the continued westward shift of economic dynamism and the increasing importance of both of Alberta's large cities to Canada. But to sustain this momentum and ensure Edmonton's role in Canada's prosperity, we must ensure that people and goods move as quickly as possible. And this means investments in our trade corridors like the Yellowhead, and yes, a completed LRT network. Mass transit has the potential to transform a city in a way that few other infrastructure investments can. Efficient transit networks are the backbone of every competitive big city. By announcing a new permanent fund for building public transit, Ottawa is finally beginning to recognize that mobility in our big cities is critical to this country's competitiveness. This is all good news for Canada's future. It could also be good news for Edmonton's future, but only if our province steps up and matches this ongoing commitment. Also critical to our continued prosperity is the competitiveness of the entire Edmonton region. Our region is vying against hundreds of mid-sized cities around the world for investment and for talent. And we risk being outperformed by regions that present a clear, unified proposition to investors. To underscore my point, a quick example. If you were an investor in Dubai or Shanghai and you Googled capital region, you'd find capital regions in the US, India, Denmark, and the list goes on. To improve our ability to get on investors' radar, the Capital Region Board is now working towards a more focused, coordinated approach to marketing the entire region to the world. Because when we're united, our voice is that much stronger and our story much more compelling. At 1.3 million strong, Edmonton Metro will be a force to be reckoned with. Now, I continue to build this strategy alongside other like-minded mayors and business leaders, and by the end of the year, progress must be made or our region will continue to be left behind. Now, all of what I've talked about so far here, our economic diversification, our brand and reputation work, our transportation infrastructure needs, and our regional economic development, all of this is essential to building this city's prosperity. There remains a gap, however, when it comes to sharing that very prosperity with all Edmontonians. The reality remains that far too many Edmontonians live in poverty, and too many of them are children. In last year's address, I announced my intention to bring the weight of the mayor's office to elevate the profile of ending poverty. Created with Council's unanimous support, the Mayor's Task Force to Eliminate Poverty is hard at work on the goal of building a plan to end poverty within a generation. And as a task force, one of the most encouraging things that we've discovered so far is that there is incredible will in this community to fix this. Thanks to many leaders across sectors speaking up in the last year, the idea that poverty is solvable, as the United Way puts it, is taking root. Many businesses we've engaged want to focus their philanthropy and want to engage new workforces. Social agencies want to resolve this issue for good. Faith groups continue to rally to the cause. And individuals, especially young people, want to lead, to volunteer, and raise money. And City Hall has sent strong signals that we're committed by taking steps towards implementing a low-income transit pass. In short, this community is ready to take up the challenge of ending poverty in Edmonton. But just writing the report isn't enough. It never is. Alberta's social policy framework was unveiled with much fanfare and optimism back in 2013. But aside from passing mentions in campaign platforms, the framework's implementation plan has barely registered in this election. Now, Edmonton is well positioned to deliver services and direct resources where they're needed the most, and we're ready to partner with the province on a goal we share with them, which is ending child poverty. Edmonton is a compassionate, humanistic kind of place. We celebrate our diversity every chance we get, and inclusion is the Edmonton way. Whether it's rallying around our immigrant and interfaith communities when incitements to violence come from abroad, or simply lighting up the high-level bridge in the right colors at the right time. In this city, we stand up for each other. And to that end, through the year of reconciliation, we began a journey of rebuilding trust and healing relationships between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Edmontonians. And in doing this work, we took a deeper look at ourselves as a country and as a city. And we've started a lot of good work. We've educated city staff about the intergenerational trauma inflicted by Indian residential schooling. We've started the work to build ceremonial sites for Aboriginal people to practice their traditions within city limits. We've committed to telling a more authentic Aboriginal story at Fort Edmonton Park. And soon, Alex Janvier's beautiful mosaic will come to life in our new winter garden. All of this has been important. But when Elder Gary Moostus was confronted in City Centre Mall last October, we realized just how far we have to go still on this road to reconciliation. How the mall reacted in the days and weeks after this event was a truly Edmonton kind of response. They accepted responsibility, they built bridges, and they committed to changing. Was it perfect? No. But these are the profound moments that mark a change in our relationship with Aboriginal peoples in this city. I see the surging young population of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people as a very positive change pressure on our city. And I believe we can show the way for a new vision of a Canadian city that lives and breathes the Treaty 6 spirit. Meanwhile, there are other change pressures that are perhaps less inspiring, but no less essential. We continue to invest more money on resurfacing and rebuilding our roads. In fact, this year alone, we'll invest close to $450 million on hundreds of roads, bridges, maybe bridges, we'll see. Sidewalks and interchanges. But there are clear warning signals. Much like the 1915 telegram from Rocky Mountain House, the trouble is on its way. As you saw this winter, our freeze-thaw cycles are occurring with greater frequency, causing more potholes. Our summer storms are more violent, which means we need to spend more money upgrading our drainage system to accommodate the dramatic increase in water. Make no mistake, climate change is a clear and present threat to our cities, and we are not yet prepared to deal with it. However, the proposed energy transition strategy again comes before Council in 2 days, and it offers us a critical decision point. Do we continue patching the roads and upsizing the pipes, or do we actually start solving the problem? Within the strategy are ambitious goals to reduce our city's greenhouse gas emissions by 35% and cut our energy use by 25% a person by 2035. These targets can't be met by a single action, but through many, like generating more of our heat and power through proven district energy systems, creating a more efficient urban form to our city, and making it easier to choose sustainable transportation options. These aren't outlandish ideas. They merely allow us to keep pace with what other cities around the world are already doing. Recently, I was in South Korea attending a global congress on cities and sustainability, and it became clear that we are well behind other cities when it comes to adapting to the challenges of a changing planet. While we are still leading the way in waste management and biodiversity, there is room to do more, much more. And these are all new opportunities for business, too. But there's no question that our approaches must be aligned with other governments. The opportunity for them to consider is simple, yet profound. By integrating our plans, we can improve our country's reputation and demonstrate that Alberta and Canada are serious about tackling climate change. Our energy transition strategy recognizes the important role that Edmonton can play in changing a conversation that has for too long hurt the way the world sees us. Now, we know that Edmontonians alone cannot save the world from itself. But when those waters rose back in 1915, no one stood on the riverbanks and asked whose job it was to fix the problem. No, Edmontonians simply roll up their sleeves and get to work. Now, cities are increasingly the places where the work is getting done. We're the agents of change in Canada today, and more so than ever. Because cities are at the crossroads of creativity and resources, we become thriving labs where ideas can reach their tipping point and become reality. And nowhere is that more true than in Edmonton. We know this about our city, and through Edmonton's Open City initiative, we're looking at new ways of improving the efficiency of city services, enhancing your ability to co-create the Edmonton you want to see right alongside us. Under Open City, we continue to expand the data we're making available, partially to help you make better business decisions, but also to trigger innovations and create connections where none existed before. This initiative also provides us with a canvas to do things like Open Lab, a new partnership with Startup Edmonton that aims to solve municipal challenges in a more entrepreneurial way. When I was elected, I challenged city staff to explore opportunities for innovation, for improvement, and for greater efficiency. And last year, we found nearly $15 million that we were able to reinvest in new services without raising taxes. But we've also started a broader conversation about how ideas can come directly from the shop floor and be put into practice. Ideas like ETS supervisor Neil Gasky's invention that cleans snow and ice from LRT crossings, saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars in staff time, as well as wear and tear on city equipment. Now, my hope is that every year, stories like Neil's become more commonplace, and we use the wisdom of our staff to continue finding better and more cost-effective ways of serving Edmontonians. Now look, we know we don't get everything right, and we understand the high expectations that you have for us. But for every bent girder or late steel shipment We pave hundreds of kilometers of new roads without incident. And last year alone, we completed the new Clairview and Meadows Recreation Centers, opened the Highlands Library, and expanded the Valley Zoo. All on time, all on budget. That's because this council is one of the most balanced, skilled, and constructive groups of people I've worked with. And every single one of us is committed to delivering city services in the best way possible. 2 weeks ago, for example, we reduced our effective tax increases by over 2%, recognizing the challenges your households might be facing. This makes it one of the lowest tax increases residents have seen in a decade, and this decision by council ensured that we only took what was absolutely necessary and not a penny more. That is the kind of leadership I believe you can expect from this city council going forward. Now, 100 years ago, Edmontonians worked together to solve a very real and immediate problem. Today, we must talk about working together in a different kind of way, specifically how we partner more effectively with other orders of government. Now, I want to be clear about what partnership means to me. It means that both parties recognize their mutual interest in achieving something great together. If we want to build a strong and resilient Alberta, we need a strong and resilient Edmonton. If we want to diversify our economy, we must recognize that urban areas are where diversification is happening. A provincial government that sees advantage in working with municipalities, where government is closest to the people, is a provincial government that will achieve results. Now, we've taken some important steps in our city charter talks so far, and it's my expectation that once the election is concluded, no matter the outcome, the provincial government will continue the important work that has already been started. Because to abandon or shortchange the charter work would be to miss the chance for Edmonton to become a true partner in building this great province. For example, if we want to reduce greenhouse gases, improve air quality, and keep people and goods moving, give Edmonton the ongoing funding required to build our LRT, because we can deliver results. And if Alberta wants to end homelessness, give us the responsibility and the resources necessary to get to the finish line, because Edmonton has shown we do deliver results. And if, as a province, we want to manage healthcare costs, invest in our ability to provide recreational opportunities, preventive social services, and early childhood programming, because Edmonton will help deliver results. Every time we've risen above a flood, a tornado, a recession, or for that matter, a playoff drought, Connor McDavid, we've shown just how strong and how resilient our city truly is. That's because this city is filled with people who stand up for Edmonton every day. Many of you are in this room today, the business and community leaders who bring Edmonton's news story to life. Edmonton is too important to Alberta's future to be ignored, and there is no flood big enough to change that. And so to conclude, that is why I'm confident that no matter what Albertans decide on May 5th, together, you, along with our City Council, will not stand for any provincial government ever forgetting about Edmonton again. Thank you.